Good evening or good afternoon if you're in WA. Welcome to Managing Your Online Reputation. This is a presentation of Business Station in association with the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program and Regional Development Australia in Brisbane, as well as Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. My name's Dante St James. I'll be taking you through this live session tonight. You can use the chat window, the Q&A window, whatever window you would like to chat in. We'll be able to chat, answer questions along the way. And please, if you do have questions about this topic tonight, please do post them in there because I really would love to see you take part, and hopefully we can answer some questions along the way that people may have about these various things. Reputation is, after all, quite a subject of contention when it comes to how to handle complaints, how to handle reviews, and also how to manage how you are presented online, both as a person, but more specifically as a business. A great quote that I dug up was from Ernest Bramah, who's an English author from the late 19th century and early 20th century, saying that a reputation for 1,000 years may depend upon the conduct of a single moment. And that's particularly relevant in a social media world where things are very, very quickly turned around almost on a dime, in that your reputation can easily be made on social media, but it can just as easily be trashed as well, depending on what you're using and how you're going about it. We're going to have some more attendees joining us very shortly. We have quite a few people registered for this one tonight, so I'm really looking forward to getting it underway with as many people as possible. I will get underway though, because we need to run on time. So a little rundown of who this is for. It's for those small businesses that aren't really in a position to be paying someone to do this. So you're not in that position where you're a multinational company or you have lots and lots and lots of employees and you can afford to have someone who's managing your social media and online reputation for them. We're also looking at people who are individuals and businesses that have some kind of public profile. So you may be an influencer or seeking to become an influencer, and thinking about how you may be able to manage your reputation as an influencer once you're online. And we're also looking at those who may have pulled out a few bad experiences before, seen some bad reviews and had a bit of suffering in their business because of that happening. We'll look at some of those details a little bit towards the end of this presentation, where we can have a chat, even live if you like, about how to approach changing that situation and recovering from it. What we will cover tonight is reputation management and why it's very, very important. We'll cover securing your properties, that's your online properties, as well as your brand and your products. We'll look at how content creation affects your reputation, and using bad reviews as something of an instructional moment for you. And most importantly, I think, is keeping your cool when you absolutely positively need to keep your cool at responding to a bad review or some kind of reputation problem online. And we'll look at some of the ideas of what it takes to invest in your reputation, whether that's in software or perhaps even in getting someone to handle it for you. A little bit about me if you've not met me before, and there's a few unfamiliar names on tonight, so thank you very much for joining us. I'm a trainer and advisor for Facebook Australia and New Zealand, as well as Google's Digital Springboard Digital Literacy Program. I work in with the ASBAS, which I just spelt wrong on that screen, sorry, the Digital Solutions Program across WA, Northern Territory and Queensland. I myself am based in the Northern Territory by choice, I know, right? And I'm also part of Treaty Business Consulting, which is a consulting firm that deals with a great big lot of digital clients. I'm also an owner of a digital agency. It's Clickstarter, which has merged recently with the operations of Treaty Digital in Darwin. I've built over 3,000 websites, both myself and my team, since 1996. We've managed over 500 individual social media accounts and created well over 2,500 online ads. I'm a bit of a certification junkie. I like studying. I've got 88 digital and business certifications, currently studying cybersecurity. And you can tell I like studying because once upon a time I was a doctor of psychiatry in in a psychiatric registrar, they call it, in a psych ward in a hospital down south. So that was definitely an interesting period in my life. Has nothing to do with reputation, but I guess it gives you an idea into the approaches that we may take when it comes to this being very methodical, almost clinical in the approach of handling the reputation of our businesses. So our first point tonight is about owning your business everywhere that you can. Now, I'm not talking about just owning a business. I'm talking about owning the name of your business wherever you possibly can own it. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at that. By owning your business, I'm talking about really owning your business name and being on the ASIC Business Names Register. Now, this may be old news for some people. For some people, they'll go, oh, I didn't even know you had to do that. Some people assume that they can just start up a business, call it a name, and off they go. The problem with that is that you may be infringing on somebody else's trademark, and your own ownership of that name then could be at risk. If someone else starts up a business doing the same thing with exactly the same name, you could be in a whole lot of trouble there. Owning your business name online means making sure you register a domain name that is appropriate for your business. So if your business is Jack's Mowing, make sure you get hold of jacksmowing.com.au. Also, just for safety, get jacksmowing.net.au, jacksmowing.com if it's available, jacksmowing.net. At the very least, those four are the most important ones when you're operating a business within Australia, at least in Australia. If your business is operating in other countries, then there are ways of getting domain names in those countries as well. So if you want to be extend your reputation to a lot of other countries, particularly in Indonesia or in countries where you can't just go and register a domain name under what they call their top level domain, which is like the .au at the end of our one and the .id at the end of Indonesia or .cn for China. You've got to make sure that you actually have permission to do those. And quite often you'll need to register a business or have someone register a business in those countries for you. So owning a business name is a very important first step when it comes to owning your business name wherever you want to do business. Now, for most of you on this call, you're mostly going to be doing business within Australia itself. But consider, if you're doing business in New Zealand, to add a .nz or .co.nz domain. If you're in Canada or you're operating in Canada, a .ca would be really appropriate. Or in Britain, you could go for a .co.uk, just to make sure that wherever your reputation may go, there's a local reference to your business name, or at least that nobody else can snap up the local reference to your business name. Because if someone is really motivated and they really want to bring you down, it's not that hard to snap up domain names and whip up a very quick WordPress site or a Wix site or even a free Google site and act as if they're you, just to do the wrong thing or to somehow present you as being not who you really are. Equally important to your domain name is your social media. Now, a lot of us who already have got Facebook, a lot of us already have Instagram, and the majority of businesses these days understand the importance of LinkedIn as well as a way of not just protecting their reputation, but also being in front of another big audience. But I would add on to that YouTube as well. Now, you don't have to be a YouTube superstar. You don't have to be an influencer. You don't even have to be very good at video. It's just very important to make sure that your YouTube channel name is secured on YouTube so that you are the official YouTube word of your business. And then you can create very, very simple videos, whether it's by recording things on your computer screen using QuickTime on a Mac, or using something like InVideo or Lumen 5, which are very simple video makers with templates on them. You can create videos of up to 10 minutes long, and they're very cheap to do. or making some video on your mobile phone using a free video maker so that you can then load that material up to your own YouTube profile. And this allows you to then create a channel for your business that will become the official YouTube presence of you. Now, you don't have to necessarily, unless you want to, unless you are really looking to market yourself on YouTube, you don't have to go to a lot of trouble to make sure that you are ranking highly on YouTube ahead of other people who do what you do. You can just simply have something which has a few videos on it that explain a little bit about who you are and what your business does, as well as a little bit about your products and maybe a little bit about the services you provide. Just having 3 short, not too fancy videos on there will really help to legitimize you so that when someone else pops up and pretends to be you, then you're able to offset that by already having something in motion on YouTube. It's a lot easier for you to have someone else's channel removed who's faking being you when you already have something present. I'd also consider these days being at least present on things like Twitter, which is quite important because that's where so many reputations are born and killed. Just ask President Trump about that. Being on Pinterest, particularly if you have a product which is very visual or a physical product that you sell. Also look maybe at TikTok, just to get your business name as a profile name on TikTok. You don't have to be active, just get your business name on it. Same with Snapchat. Try and secure those things so that you have them. You don't necessarily have to use them, but just so you have them and no one else can get them. So that's something as close as possible, your business name on things like Snapchat, TikTok, Pinterest, and Twitter. Now, this is not one that a lot of business owners really think too deeply about. It's the idea of owning your actual name as well, particularly if you are a small business. So I'm assuming that because you've come through ASBAS here, you are a small business. So your own name is indelibly tied to your business's name. It's on your registration certificate if you registered an ASIC business name. It's against the ABN. And let's face it, you're the face and the email address that most people who deal with your business will come across. So making sure that you at least have a personal profile or what they call a public figure page on Facebook is the very least you could do. Now, if you're not a really big Facebook person and you don't want to splatter your life and the 3 meals a day that you have and photos of your children sprinkled all over your profile, that's actually fine. It's not necessarily about you having every little bit of your life spread all over Facebook for the world to see. It's more about securing that profile in place early to make sure that if anybody tries to impersonate you, that you were there first and that you have details in there, such as your email address to your business and the address of your business linked to a personal profile or a public figure page on Facebook that can then back you. It says that if you're acting on behalf of your business on Facebook or on Instagram, that you are the legitimate person doing it. And there is a history of you being there in place. So I'm assuming that just about everybody here will have a Facebook profile at the very least. You don't have to be massively active on it, but it goes hand in hand that the more active you are on social media, the less likely people are to be able to impersonate you. And also consider having a Google account. Those of you who use Google Chrome as a browser probably have this. It may have been what came with your Gmail address when you set that up. Having a Google account and a Gmail address with as much as possible in it is a really valuable thing because it shows some degree of legitimacy. Now, ultimately, you'd really want to have an email address that contains your domain name. I can see Kirsty's just dropped in from the Darwin Chocolate Factory. And so having an email address with the domain of info, or let's say yum, I know there's that one, yum@darwinchocolatefactory.com.au, shows a direct link between that domain name and a business. And also if you've got your own name against that, then you're also showing that you have a very specific personal link to that. In fact, when you're going to verify a lot of things like a business page on Facebook, for example, or verifying that you own a location on Google Maps, quite often it will ask you to verify it via an email address that's associated with the domain name that's on that profile. So if it's showing, for instance, darwinchocolatefactory.com.au as the website for that location and the website for that Facebook page, then when it comes to verifying something, if you've had somebody try and take that away from you or pretend to be someone else or pretending to be your business or acting nefariously against your business, then having that email address with that domain name gives you a lot of authority when it comes to the big platforms online. Now we'll look at being consistently active on social media as a business. So this is not so much you personally being very active on social media. This is more about your business being active on social media. So we say to get and keep momentum on social media by being active and posting regularly. And I'm not talking about having to post 3, 4, 5 times a day, just posting regularly and with some consistency. It gives you, it's like your giant boulder is rolling already. So it's a lot harder for anyone who's going to push another rock down the hill to catch yours. It keeps you on top of the searches for your business name on social networks. When you search for your business name on Facebook, and it's the same as another business name on Facebook, the more active you are and the more relevant you are to the people who are searching, like they're in the same general vicinity as you, in the same region or the same country or the same city, then you're going to come up on top. But if someone else has had 6 months, 2 years, 10 years worth of momentum and you're starting up new, it can take a lot of time and a lot of effort and sometimes a lot of money for them to get on top. So the idea of you being, I'm assuming, the first with your business name and your location on Facebook or other social media ahead of any other copycats, well then it's really important for you to keep your momentum going on that profile. Keep posting, keep sharing content, keep engaging with the people who follow you. It keeps your followers above others who may copy or pretend to be you. So when I say your followers count. So the amount of people who are following you, it'll keep you as having more than they have. So they might be able to add 15 of their friends. Meanwhile, you've got 2,500 people following you. So you automatically, again, you look like the most legitimate and the most real of the two. And this is where somebody particularly is creating a second page with the same name as yours, pretending to be you. And there's some cases with a particular tourism operator near where I am in Darwin, where someone did exactly that. And it was just the fact that the real operator had a lot more followers and history that they were able to prove beyond a doubt that they were the real business. And this other one was just a copycat page. This comes down then to making sure when you see something that's fake on there, whether it's a fake person leaving a bad review or a fake business page pretending to be your business, report it immediately. Don't waste any time. And you can keep on top of this by making sure that you do a search regularly online to ensure that your page is the only page that's present about your business, the only page that's carrying your business name and your logo. It's not a huge search to do. It's just quite simply just type in your business name to the search bar on Facebook. Now, naturally, the first one that should come up is yours, but wait for that search to come up to see if there are other ones that come up. And also search for things like the groups or also the pages tab when you do that search, just to narrow it down to the pages and groups that have a same or similar name as your business. Great point from Kirsty in the chat there saying, register your logo. It's absolutely worth it. Yeah, put a trademark on your logo. because you'll take one person to go, oh, I'm just going to copy that logo. And if you can claim a trademark infringement on somebody using your logo, but if your business just has a photo of you or a photo of the landscape or the photo of your front of your shop front as the profile picture instead of a logo, then you don't have as easy a claim on that. So if somebody is using your logo without your permission, even if they're using your logo on their profile, using your logo in a post, in a group, and you can claim that it's infringing on your trademark, that gives you a lot more power to be able to shut down any sort of negative momentum before it happens. But of course, we're hoping that doesn't really get to that point, especially when you have to mobilize your followers to go and do a whole lot of fake profile reporting as well. But it is useful to work on making fans out of your followers, because when they become fans, they'll back you when those fakes start to appear. When you have fans, they'll mobilize themselves for you. In fact, you can ask them to go, hey, can everyone just go who's following, do me a favor and go and report this page over here as being a fake, because it's not us and it's causing us really big problems. People who love what you do, love your business, even love you, they will support you so much. And Kirsty, I think, has had this particular thing happen where she's had to have fans get behind her and do the right thing. Our third point is to watch out for your brand names and products. I'm not just talking about your brand as in your business name. I'm talking about the sub-brands or the names that you use within your business that are uniquely yours. So for instance, if there's a juice company calling themselves the Daily Juice Company, and they have what they call the Daily Pineapple as one of their juices. If another business starts up a business that's called the Juice Company and they have a juice called the Daily Pineapple, unless that business has trademarked that name, the first business has no right to tell the second business not to use that name. So it's really important for you to go, if there's really well-known products and little sub-brands that you use in your business, whether that's a physical product or maybe it's a service that you offer. If you've got a service you're giving a very specific name to and that others are copying, it's worth scanning social media, searching through online marketplaces like your Amazons, your eBays, your Wishes, and do a search on Google just to see if there's anything in there that may be matching the little brand names that you like to use, or the internal names that you use for things, or the service names that you've given, which are fairly unique. Which gives you then a point saying, well, maybe to make it easy to search for, you could consider renaming some of your individual products to something a little bit more unusual. This is particularly good when your product is very physical, not so much consumable things like food, but more so I'm thinking like makeup. Color names can be quite easy to turn into something, a red could instantly be Scarlet Dreams. But if you've got a Scarlet Dreams and someone else starts selling something called Scarlet Dreams and they're trying to rip you off, your reputation is really at stake there, because if you're known for having a Scarlet Dreams lipstick and then this other person is selling a Scarlet Dreams lipstick, then it's very easy for the market to become confused when that other Scarlet Dreams is finding hairs and needles in their lipsticks and all sorts of problems. You don't want that reflecting on you. So it can be worth renaming something to something very cool and unique. I'm not saying calling your lipstick something like, color stick for lips. Still call it lipstick, but maybe call the color something unique that you haven't seen elsewhere. That way it's really easy for you to search for instances of where that particular color name or that particular kind of product has been identified somewhere else on the internet, whether that's on a marketplace like eBay and Amazon, or Google, it's on someone's website, or on a Facebook page. The fourth point I'm going to give you is about protecting your people. Now, this may be protecting you yourself and your name, but if you have employees or partners or, even, people who volunteer for you, then you've got to protect them as well. And you can do that by having a clear profile of yourself that's on things like LinkedIn and Facebook. And those two are really the most important because they're the two that really carry the furthest. LinkedIn gives you a very professional place to be, and Facebook is the biggest network of them all. So just to ensure that you and your most important people have profiles online, we talked about this a little bit earlier, and that those profiles are very clearly theirs. It's not a photo of their baby. It's not a photo of a tree. It's a photo of them. So it can clearly be said that this is the profile of the person who's associated with this business. Anything that comes from any other profile is going to be fake. The only legitimate source of information and feedback or emails or anything from this person will be this person with this photo, with this profile. A lot of people go, well, I like to have privacy. I don't want the world knowing about me. Unfortunately, when you're present online and you're present on social media specifically, privacy is a little bit of a dying thing. Now, I'm not talking about having privacy where people have cameras pointing in your bedroom window and recording every single thing that happens there. We're talking more about the privacy of you to not have anything on social media about yourself, including not having a profile. When you don't have a regularly looked after profile with your photo on it and it clearly being you, then you are absolutely ripe for others to drop in and pretend to be you. If you're not active on social media, then it doesn't take very much for someone else to drop in and pretend to be you and then ruin your reputation by acting in a certain way. This happened to me and Kirsty from the Chocolate Factory may actually remember this happening in October 2018, when I was just about to do a Facebook presentation on Facebook ads, and my ad account was cancelled by Facebook 30 minutes before that. Now, the end product was, we thought it was something, but the end product ended up being that somebody was pretending to be both my business and myself at that time. And that reputation dent, yeah, it was not much fun at all, Kirsty. It was horrible. You were there, I remember. And it wasn't, they were pretending to be me and acting in such a way that was absolutely contrary. Like, it was quite disgusting actually what they were doing and what they were trying to put online. It wasn't about me personally. It was just activities they were trying to do that were involved in things that are definitely banned on the Facebook platform. So what that meant was that I had to go through a process of proving that I was me. I had to go through a process of proving that I was the person who I said I was and this other person was a fake. Now, only 3 years prior to that, I had lost that battle because I had everything on my profile was an old phone number that I had no access to anymore and an old email address from an old employer that I had no access to. So I learned that lesson from that time, never to do that again. It was very easy for me to recover my Facebook account this time around because I had a current email address that I've always had access to and my current phone number that I have access to. So I could very easily come back and say, no, this is me. Here's the proof. And you can verify it automatically. And they didn't have to go through a giant process of having to prove identity and going through, you know, take down requests of trademark material. It could have been nasty, but thankfully it wasn't. It was a very quickly sorted out thing. It wasn't fun on the time, but it was very easy to sort out, and it could have been a whole lot worse than it was if I wasn't active and current on my Facebook profile. Which then raises the thing of, if you can't be 100% hidden and private and hidden away from the world, then you need to be clear and open and have your real name on social media. Now, I'm not saying you have to be super active on there. I'm not saying you have to post tons of photos of everything. In fact, you can make a profile on Facebook that has no friends and doesn't allow anyone to friend request you, but just have enough information on there, including your current email address within your settings. It doesn't have to be within your profile, but within your settings, so that you can very easily verify that you are the real person, the real owner of that name. And linking that to the person who's running your business being on your website is really helpful, Because like I said before, it's really easy for someone to drop in and pretend to be you and wreck your reputation if you are not actively being you online somewhere. Now, we're not asking you to give the home address of where you live on your website. That's just silly. But it's at least saying what your name is. So that if Dante St James is the head of digital for Treaty Business Consulting, that should be able to be searched for easily, so that anybody who was looking to verify this weird message that was coming through that did sound a bit weird about me and was painting me as a person I'm not, then they can verify that, no, this is the wrong person. He wouldn't have that. Wouldn't he have an @treaty.com.au email address? So it helps you to claw back a little of that reputation damage if or when it ever happens. It allows people to easily check your identity against a solid source. So that's a really important part of it, is protecting you and your people, particularly the very high profile people in your company. You may have sales reps. It could be really important to make sure that it's very easy for them to identify themselves, rather than have, especially when someone pretends to be them. If someone's trying to get at your business specifically because they felt like they were somehow wronged by you, or they felt like, you know, that you were copying something of theirs. That just doesn't sound too unfamiliar, does it, Kirsty? That you can then show that very clearly who you are, what you do, and what your business is. So that if anyone tries to be you or tries to disparage you, you've got something to come back with. Number 5 is listening and monitoring. I would say take a look each month at these things. You don't have to do it every week. Generally, these things happen over a period of time, unless it's a burst of attention from a very disgruntled customer or client who decides to flood social media in one day and get it out of their system and run off, which most people will do. They'll just have their rant and they'll run away. I'd say take a look each month. Do a really basic search on Google for yourself, your name I'm talking about, just to see, you know, what is out there about you. Just be curious about it. See what's out there about you. See what's out there about your business's name, and think about the products that you sell, so you can see what's out there about them too. This is where you might find a very hidden review that was good or bad on sites like Yelp or Brown Book, which most people in Australia have never heard of, but it is actually a business directory, or the Better Business Bureau in America. Now, whilst these may not be very widely used, and Yelp is barely used in Australia, they're still used by someone. It could have been an American tourist who came in and used your business or bought something from you, and they had what they thought was a bad experience. They wish to complain about that. So they may not use necessarily the review sites and tools that we would normally use in Australia. The big ones for us is Facebook recommendations and also Google reviews. They're the big ones. Unless you're working in a tourism area or you're a tourist attraction of some sort, where TripAdvisor is a very important one as well. So do a search. Those things will appear. Particularly if they've been on there a day or two, the Google algorithm will pick those up and they'll index that in Google. But then do the same through your social media, through your Facebooks, your Pinterests, your Twitters, Instagram, maybe to a degree, yeah. So maybe look at TikTok, Snapchat, not so much those two. They're less searchable. What your searches are going to be more those social media where there's a lot of written content and a lot of reviews can be made. If you're looking overseas, you may want to look at things like Weibo, WeChat, looking at, you know, some of the other selling platforms like Alibaba, AliExpress, and then yes, yeah, the eBays and the Amazons as well. Have a look on there to see if people are reviewing things that they, you know, thought were you and they're not. There's someone else, and they thought they saw you on eBay. It's just worth doing that little bit of a search for you. You can also use software to listen for this stuff for you, but it does get pretty expensive. Reputation management software is a very specialized field. So you can look for mentions on things like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter using things like Hootsuite, which is very good for that. So that's not expensive at all. In fact, you can start with that one for free. And a lot of the other social media posting platforms will allow you to do a lot of that for free, or at least for a very low cost. But specific reputation management software, and I looked at one a couple of years ago called Softfront, which is looking for all kinds of mentions of your business, your brand, even your name right across the internet as it happens. It's not very good at searching social media, but I did notice it was particularly good at Twitter. But the one that I think is probably the most powerful one, and it is absolutely free, is Google Alerts. Google Alerts is something which you can subscribe to. It's almost like a newsletter. You go to Google Alerts and you put in that I'm looking for mentions of this particular word, and that could be your brand name. So using Kirsty on here, and I know Kirsty, so I can draw these comparisons. Kirsty can type in Darwin Chocolate Factory as a Google alert that comes to her. And that will tell her every time that combination of words is arising somewhere on the internet. Now, it won't be able to scan Facebook and social media, but it will be able to scan websites, review sites, directories, forums, those kind of things. Anything that Google is able to index. Quite often you'll get things like government media releases will be linked through there. So if you're someone who works with things like government contracts, or you may be working in things where you're tendering for work through government bodies, then that can be a really useful thing. In fact, you can use Google Alerts, and this is a bit off topic, for finding out when grants are available, when tenders are being released. You can, when people are talking about your competitor, you can type in their name and actually get an alert when people are talking about them, which allows you to go to that forum or that site and drop into the conversation as your business instead of the competitor dropping in there and conversing about it. Can be tricky, but it also can be really worthwhile. If you're a lot more engaging with those people, then you're going to get a better reputation than those who seem to ignore everybody online. It does sound like a lot of hard work, I know. The Google Alerts thing will soften a lot of that having to search all the time. I get the Google Alerts on a range of different things that come in almost every day to me. I scan through and just quickly just go, don't need to see, don't need to see, don't need to see, don't need to see, don't need to see. Oh, that's interesting. Let's have a look at what that is. And you can pick up things very, very quickly because it's an overnight thing that drops in almost first thing in the morning, the next morning. This is an interesting one because not everybody can do it, and not everyone can handle the very candid feedback they'll quite often get from people in person. But if you do networking groups, or you go to, general meetings of business associations you may be a member of, really listen to how people react when you're having a chat with them about your business, particularly that thing when someone goes, oh, so what's your business? Or where do you work? And it's really interesting to see the reaction that people will have. It'll give you a good barometer of what your reputation is in the market by their reaction, usually on their face, not necessarily what they're saying, or it could be in that pregnant pause, that awkward silence they have where they're not quite sure whether they can answer that because it seems a little bit rude to do it. But being really candid about it and really upfront and saying, oh, did you hear something about us? And they go, oh, well, oh, no, not really. I said, oh, no, look, I'm a big girl. I can handle it. Just let me know what it is. I can handle it. I've heard it all before. It's just good for me to know because I know where we can improve our business. They go, oh, look, I just had a friend go there the other day and they said they had a really bad experience. And you go, oh, that's really, okay. I'm really like upset that they had that. Not because it's bad for me, but because, we try to make a really good experience for everybody. You've got a chance then to give your business card to that person to pass on to that person. And they can say, hey, I ran into the person that owns that shop that you had the bad experience in. And they said, look, they'd really love to have a chat for you. And, and so you can let them know what went wrong. Now, you may not ever get a call back from that person, but the fact that you actually reached out has brought back your reputation to the person you were talking to in the networking function and to the person they passed on that card to. They both said, wow, they do care. Huh. I might just give them a call or go in and see them and say, hey, yeah, I just wanted, because when you open up the gate for someone to give you feedback, they will give you feedback. They may not be particularly honest or very forthcoming or very candid about it, but they will give you feedback. And the more comfortable they are with you receiving that feedback, if you're known as somebody who can take feedback and not arc up at them, then they know they can do it without fear. And look, me personally, I used to take it very, very personally when someone would say something about what I was doing in my business. I was very new in it. I was very overwhelmed with it. And so it was really easy for me to get very personally offended by a piece of feedback. And I could get very upset about it. But, you know, I've done a lot of personal development over the last couple of years that's made, it's sort of built that muscle in me around being able to hear feedback, to the point now where it doesn't personally affect me. If someone doesn't like what I do, that's about them. It's not about me. If they've got a problem with the service that I provide, again, that's about them. But at the same time, I use that as an instructional point where it's, if I just take that time to listen or to really read into what that feedback was, I can go, you know what, you're right. I did not treat that customer probably the way I could have. I need to get complete with this. And I'll often reach out to that particular person and go, hey, I know that we didn't get off on the right foot there. And I'm going to take responsibility for that, because, you know, I was not in a great place at the time, and I could rattle off 100 excuses for that. The really point is, you had a bad experience. I'd like to have a chance to try and fix that up for you. It's really quite disarming when someone comes to you like that. I work in a workplace like that all the time. We're always checking ourselves before we wreck ourselves. We're always making sure that if we have that bad experience with someone, you go, hey, what was it that I could have done better? It's not laying blame. It's not saying that people are all wonderful and we're all the naughty children. It's just saying that there would have been something that I could have done. Now, some people, yes, some customers will never be happy. They'll always complain. They'll always have something to whinge about. But at the same time, you've got an opportunity to listen to them and perhaps learn a little bit of something that goes on in your business that you may not have been aware of. You may not have been aware that when people step through your front door, that they slip on a slippery tile, and whilst no one's fallen over and hurt themselves yet, they may find that as a really horrible thing to experience as they're walking in your front door. Or it may be that when they come inside, the music is so loud that they can't hear themselves think, let alone browse around your store. Or that when they get to your website, they can't tell what the heck it is you do. They just have no idea what it is you do. So to get that feedback gives you a real good opportunity to self-correct before it starts to affect dozens or hundreds or thousands of other customers. And this is the big kahuna, this one, handling bad reviews and complaints. It can be like really hard to do this, because the natural instinct is, especially, and Kirsty raised this in the chat just before, you know, one of the reasons why I could arc up so much about criticism about my business, because I was my business. It was my name. It was everything to me. It was everything I was that business. And I wasn't particularly great at it at the time, but I could arc up about it because it was so personal to me. But along the way, I've learned some much better ways of handling bad reviews and complaints. And these are some principles that I've picked up along the way, but they're also principles that I've forced myself to do. As when I get a piece of bad feedback, a bad email response, a piece of criticism, or a bad review, or somebody coming and saying someone complained about me, what I make myself do is I read it once, and then I take a break and go for a walk outside, go to the bathroom, get a glass of water, whatever it takes, get away from my desk, away from my computer, even if it's just for 2-3 minutes, before I come back and read it again. And I think that's when you get the idea that an instant response comes out of the amygdala, or the reptile part of the brain. It's a fight or flight response where your adrenaline is fired up and you just want to go on the defensive. Somebody has attacked my kingdom and I want to get out my sword and I need to attack them. I need to whack them over the head and stab them through the heart because they're attacking my kingdom. But that's not the time to respond, because that's not who you really are. You're not a reptile. You're a business owner. You're a person. You have empathy, and largely so does a customer. So don't respond immediately. In fact, I'd say get someone else to read it and repeat back what they interpreted from it before you even think about replying to it. But when you do respond, make sure you always do. Make sure you always respond out of a very sensible, calm place. If not, delay it till tomorrow. Don't do it today. Delay it till later in the day. And do this out of a care for your business, not out of a personal defense of yourself, but out of a care for making sure your business does the right thing the next time if it was legitimate. Got a message here from Kirsty saying, what if a person doesn't leave a review, just a star rating? Do you call them? I would say that if it's a star rating on something like Facebook or a not recommend, you've always got the opportunity to respond. If it's a star rating, I probably need an example of where that star rating was, whether that was on Google or whether it was like on like a TripAdvisor maybe. You can reach out to them and just say, ultimately, sorry you had on Google Business, yep, 2-star rating on Google Business. So the response would be naturally through they have to have a Google account to be able to leave a review. So you can respond back to that Google account and alerts them through their connected email, and we'll let them know that there has been a response. So if you've got a 2-star rating with no explanation there, you can approach them with saying, thanks for leaving a review. Sorry you didn't have the best time with us. But so that we can learn and grow and become a better business, we'd like to, if you could just let us know what it is, where we missed the mark, so that we can make sure we don't do that again. It also gives you an opportunity to say, hey, come on in, let's share a chocolate and have a chat, or whatever seems appropriate for your business. So yeah, when you get those star ratings that don't come with an explanation, they're largely coming from people we call keyboard warriors. They're people who, they don't really have a clear thought about what it is they want to say. They've just got a chip on their shoulder, and you'll probably find that they've got a chip on their shoulder with 50 other businesses in town, and this is just what they do. They just never can be pleased, and they're going to leave a 2-star rating everywhere. If it's one of those things where you get concerned and go, oh, but I so valued my 5-star rating, now it's only a 4.7, and I feel like, you know, my business doesn't look good because 4.7. Bear in mind that a 5-star rating kind of feels a bit creepy. It feels like there's a whole bunch of people who are being paid to do those reviews for you. I've got a couple of businesses that now do have 5-star ratings. That's because we don't have that many ratings. It's never been an important thing for us to do. But when it comes with, you know, there's a certain web developer in my town who has 15 different positions on Google, and all of them has about 50 reviews from people with names that are not necessarily common in Australia, then you start to go, this guy is so fake. He's got so many fake reviews on there. He's actually literally gone and paid someone to write reviews for him. And whilst it helps him in his Google search results, Google just very recently has said that they're going to be chasing what they call false map pins. So when there's map pins which are being placed that aren't real and have reviews that aren't real, particularly if you see that there's a pattern that Google's AI can trace that sees that this person seems to leave the same review for everybody that they've ever reviewed, they'll be able to see that this is following a pattern that looks very fake, and will ask them to verify their account. And if they can't verify their account, then those reviews will go away. About the only way you can get rid of a bad review on Google, unfortunately. But yeah, if you've got too many 5 stars, then it actually comes across as a little bit fake, and I just don't tend to trust businesses that much. Some of the best places I've ever stayed, the best businesses I've ever dealt with, have not had a 5-star rating. They've had a 4.2 or a 4. It seems so much more realistic to me. But it's where you see that the majority of the ratings and the majority of the reviews that are left that are positive, and like we're talking about the overwhelming majority, not like a 51 to 49%, but like 80% of these are 5-star ratings, and another 10% of them are 4-star ratings, and you know, less than 10% are below 4 stars, then the overall average is that this is going to be a business that's worth dealing with. And so that shows that you've got a solid reputation online. And that's great. But nobody wins an argument online. And that's when it can see, if you let things calm down, you let the amygdala stop shooting up all that, making you an adrenaline junkie and making you want to rant and rave and carry on and have an argument. Whilst some of those arguments have been very entertaining, particularly when they come up in the news, of where a cafe defended themselves against what they call a mummy activist. It can be very entertaining to read that. But the reality is that I wouldn't want my business known for a news article about where I argued with a customer online and destroyed their reputation. That doesn't seem to be a great win for me. I think a great win is where you have a great product, great service, and people rave about it. They say that they love what you do. And that's the kind of business I think everybody on this call probably wants. So instead of trying to win an argument or even get into one, you can aim to clarify what happened by asking very factual questions, things which are, did this happen? Yes or no? How did you feel when that happened? You can get an idea from someone's response saying, I felt really, really humiliated when your sales rep said this to me. And like, okay, now we start to get to the heart of the matter. We go, oh, maybe we deserved that because we have a problem sales rep, or we have, a bad batch of milk that went out into our coffees that, oh, wow, we didn't really know that. And perhaps someone was hiding that fact from me. So yeah, we deserve that. Responding with an apology, even if it's not your fault, you can apologize, be generous, I say, with your apologies. Showing an apology isn't weakness. It's just showing that you're taking responsibility for an interaction with your business, regardless of whether this person's being unreasonable. If they're trying to get free stuff out of you, you can usually spot that, and just don't offer them free stuff after the fact, unless you really think it's going to help. But quite often complaints and reviews and ratings can be used as kind of a currency against you as a, hey, if you don't respond with giving me free stuff, I am going to change my rating to do not recommend. Thankfully, Facebook and Google are quite good at that. And TripAdvisor doesn't even let you change your review. So you have to give a review at the time because you can't change your review later on. I would say then be generous, yes, with the apology. You're not apologizing for their experience. What you are is that you're apologizing for the fact that they had a bad experience. You're not taking responsibility necessarily that you did that bad experience, you caused it. You're saying, look, I'm sorry you had that experience. I'd love to find out a bit more about how it happened so we can sort of stop it from happening again. Some people will be very angry at the time. This is why I say never, ever, ever reply to this within the first hour. In fact, wait a day, let it stew away a little bit. It's going to be fine. So few people are going to see that response and that review anyway in that 24 hours that you can take some time. And by then your adrenaline's calmed down, their adrenaline's calmed down, and they may be willing to have a conversation. Or in some cases, they may be willing to completely turn around the conversation within that and reply back to your reply publicly and say, you know what, we all have bad days. Thanks for coming back to me. And that ultimately is going to make you look so much better than trying to win an argument. Winning an argument, no one wins an argument online when it comes to reputation or reviews or ratings. It's just kind of impossible to do it. If it does get a little bit nasty, that's where you have to move the conversation offline, or at least to email or a phone call, or if they want to carry on a rant and rave, make sure it happens in instant messaging on Instagram or an inbox message on your Facebook profile. Just get the nastiness off your profile and off your page as soon as you possibly can, because you don't want to cause what is called a pile-on, where suddenly 50 of your mates are piling onto the conversation and saying this person's a dick, or 50 of their mates are piling onto it and saying that you're a dick. And you just don't need that kind of thing happening on your social media presence, because that means that suddenly 100 more people are involved in this when it could have been done quite easily and silently just between the two of you. I don't know what happened to that screen there. Let me see. Case studies and examples. Well, I think we gave a ton of them tonight. Kirsty, thank you for your generosity of offering a lot of points along the way, because that was great. It really gave us a very real case where, you know, you've added some conversation points in there saying how you got a 2-star rating on Google Business. You gave them extra chocolate to help offset that. And also that 5-star ratings, yeah, they can seem a little fake, but we've got a few minutes to go. If you've got an example you'd like to share in the chat window or a question that you'd like to ask about reputation management and how to better handle those things like bad ratings, bad reviews, perhaps customers that can be a little bit unreasonable when it comes to their behavior online afterwards, I'd say, yeah, please drop it into the chat window. Otherwise, this particular webinar will be available in about 48 hours on the Business Station YouTube page. So if you dropped in a little late and you missed a few slides, you'd like to know what they are, you can do the whole, just go to YouTube in a couple of days' time and type in Business Station, and you'll be able to see this one, as well as all the other C19 Biz Booster webinars that have happened in the last few weeks. There's quite a few on there now. In fact, I'd say we've started with these in early June, so there's quite a lot of them are built up already. Hey, great question from Kirsty, just came in at the last minute too. What do you think about people who pay people for their reviews on the spot? It's a way of getting a review, I suppose. If you, this could be one of those things where you have maybe an iPad at the counter, or, you know, that you might have a, you might say, hey, give us a review. It shows up and show us your reviews. Oh, great. Here's an extra chocolate. Or here's a 10% voucher off your next purchase. Look, I wouldn't worry too much about that, because it does give you the basis of some great reviews. But when someone really wants to have a complaint about you, they'll just go, oh no, it's okay, it's fine, I've got to move, I've got to go, and then they'll go, and then they'll write the bad review about you afterwards. And I would say, if you're trying to incentivize people with reviews by paying them or giving them product or giving them discounts in store, a person who had a bad review is more likely to whinge about that and say, and they even tried to bribe me into giving them a good review while I was in the store. Oh my goodness, they're so bad. Reviews are going to be hard to get. It's less than 1% of most customers of any kind of company or any kind of business are going to be legitimate reviews. If you come across a small business that, particularly an online business, a small online business that is maybe selling stuff through e-commerce, and they have literally hundreds of reviews just glowing about them all the time, the chances are they won't be real reviews. Real reviews are very short, sharp, and to the point. They're not great big long essays about stuff. Short reviews, they're going to be like, loved it, had a great time, thanks guys, we'll be back. They're very, very short reviews. Unless it's TripAdvisor, where you get a lot of people who are almost professional reviewers, that they'll spend, you know, half an hour, 3/4 an hour, an hour writing a very long and complex review of the particular hotel they stayed in, every little feature, because that's part of them feeling, I don't know, significant and being a travel blogger, I suppose. A lot of influencers will do the same thing. It is hard to get reviews. When you get a bad one, it's less about the review that they gave you, and it's far more about how you respond to it. And that's where I might leave tonight. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know after hours for many of you on the East Coast and in the Central time zone can be a little hard, because you've got kids and you've got dinners and all those sort of things. And on the West Coast, well, probably hard for you because you hadn't finished work yet. So thank you for joining me. I've got a bunch of these. I've got another one tomorrow night. Trying to remember what it's for. Let me stop my share and look to you definitely. Oh gosh, they're my ring lights. See, they're shining in my glasses. The ones we've got this week that I'm doing is, I'm doing one tomorrow at 12:30 Perth time, which is what, 2 o'clock Darwin time and 2:30 East Coast time, on acquiring customers. And then on Wednesday, I've got one at the same time as this one we did, on doing your own market research. That's a really interesting one. I think that one you might enjoy. Got quite a few people registered for it as well. I'll see you very shortly, and thank you for joining me, and have a great night.